But let's dive into this conversation about why the Orioles and why you should be hopeful of what they can be moving forward is because the Orioles actually have a lot of homegrown talent. Now, people can look at it and say underperformance, injuries, you name it. But over the last couple weeks, you're really starting to feel that if these young guys can figure it out, this team could be really good going into 2026 and beyond. So, as you guys know, two of the top prospects for the Baltimore Orioles were just called up in Houston. Dylan Beavers, who made his debut in the second game of the series against Houston, and then Sam Basallo gets the call and DHs in his first game in the big leagues. Sam Basallo then being the top catching prospect in all of baseball, as well as being the top prospect in the Orioles system. And so when you're looking at this young talent, and actually in that lineup, the Orioles then had 8 of their 9 guys were homegrown players. And I'll get to that lineup here in just a second. But let me show you the video of Sam Basallo getting called up because I think also showing you a young man that's going to be able to live out his dream.
Señor. Señor.
Por eso yo te estoy llamando ahora, papá, para darte la bienvenida al show, mijo.
Señor.
Ya tú sabes, papi. A meter mano, papá.
Gracias. Gracias, papá. Gracias. Thank you, thank you.
You know, allergy season, how does that not get you emotional in ways, right? Seeing guys being able to live out their dream. And Sam Basallo definitely has earned the call to get up there. And Dylan Beavers, both have had phenomenal years in the minor leagues. And where I wanted to go with this is that the lineup and the potential that the team has, and it's there. It didn't go away. It's all there. And maybe you're starting to see it because the team now, expectations are off. You're not expected to go and win. You sold at the deadline. And now these young players are going out there and playing more freely. They're playing with nothing to lose for the rest of the year, except that they're just trying to continue to build off of what they believe is a strong nucleus that can help this team beyond. Now, I just mentioned about the lineup in Sunday's game against the Astros of all the homegrown talent. If you look at that starting lineup here, it was Holiday Westberg, Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, Colton Cowser, Sam Basallo, Kobe Mayo, Dylan Beavers, and then Jeremiah Jackson hidden ninth. Now, some of those other names that were thrown in there ended up coming into the game later because the Orioles smacked them. You could argue that was the best win of the year for the Birds. But 8 of those 9 guys came from your own system, homegrown. So that one is really cool to see. But number 2, you feel the energy that this team is now trying to get back. You're seeing guys be able to figure out and handle the adversity. And ultimately, I think this is going to make the Orioles extremely dangerous. And now you're factoring in that you just brought up your 2 best prospects in the system and Dylan Beavers, who I love his compact, short swing, and I love his ability to go and make something happen on the base paths. And then there's Sam Basallo, who Sam Basallo he's a beast. I think he is going to be one of the best power hitters. I would argue he might become the best hitter on the Orioles lineup just because of how talented he is. He can drive the baseball to all parts of the field. The upside for him is undeniable. And actually, I'll pull up a couple of those at-bats from Sam's day today in Houston. So everything looked poised. Everything looked under control for a guy that is so young, that is going out there in his first big league game. You wouldn't really tell that he was dealing with all those nerves. And actually, it would have been a pretty grand one here where Sam Basallo had a home run robbed by Jesus Sanchez, which was Sanchez's second, by the way, of the game. But here was the moment of Sam Basallo finally getting his first big league hit. And again, that first at bat, when you look at it. Sorry, I'm rewinding for a second. It's a pitch in. I think it was like a cutter running in. And Sam doesn't get all of it, obviously, because if he did, it would have been long gone. But that was a miss for him. And it was that close. Sam's got so much talent. But then here is just perfectly executed. Guy's going to try to elevate a fastball in the count, and Sam doesn't try to do anything crazy. And he hits a rocket to right center, drives in two. He gets his first big league hit and 2 RBIs in the process. You accomplish 2 things that will be first in your career. So that ball, save that ball, first RBIs and first hit in the big leagues. But you see a guy like him. You see a guy like Dylan Beavers. Then you're factoring in a guy that you have on your team in Jordan Westberg, who I think people forget of how valuable he is to the Baltimore Orioles. And Adley Rutschman's starting to pick it up a little bit. Jackson Holiday is figuring out how to play a full 162. Oh, and then by the way, you still have Gunnar Henderson, which quietly, I know the power numbers might not be there for Gunnar, but everything else in his game, especially defensively, continues to get better. So when we're looking at what went wrong for Baltimore this year, there's a lot of things that went wrong. Injuries definitely were not helpful, but every team gets injured. So I don't like using that excuse. They didn't play the game fundamentally sound enough early. And also, when things aren't going well and you're dealing with expectations, well, you tend to put more pressure on yourself, more stress, and the Birds didn't handle it well. It led to the firing of Brandon Hyde. It led to the team having some really down and dark moments where the team seemed unrecognizable one to that team that from when Adley got called up in 2022 to the end of the 2024 season, that stretch of games, the Orioles had the most wins in the American League. Looked very different. And I know a lot of people worried about what it means for this team moving forward. Are you missing the window? Is this team developing at the right pace? Well, in some cases, I don't mean this in a way. It's not the best thing that could happen because the ultimate goal is you got to go and win a championship. So they are failing at that component this year because that was the goal. But if this was going to happen, this scenario that allows all the young guys to go out and learn, this might have been a blessing in disguise for Baltimore because these young guys are going out there and learning a heck of a lot about how to go out and play the game. And they're playing free. And here's a great tweet from JCM, by the way. Shout out JCM with the Baltimore Sun. But the Orioles are 41-33 since the Trevor Rogers game on May 24th. That's a .554 winning percentage, a 90 win pace, and only 4 MLB teams have more wins than the Orioles over the span. Now, again, the really rough start put this team in this position, but I really like the direction that they're going. I do. And I think it's so valuable that Kobe Mayo is playing first base and getting regular reps. I love the fact that you're seeing Jackson and Gunnar and Westberg. That's your infield right there, going out and getting those reps. And right now, there's some great other stories who could be super utility guys. Ramon Arias gets moved. Well, guess what? Jeremiah Jackson has taken advantage of his opportunity so far. Had a great game on Sunday in Houston. And then your starting staff's slowly kind of rounded into form. Dean Kramer again, which I'm going to continue to say this about Dean. He has a higher ceiling than people want to admit. And again, I'm going to emphasize ceiling does not mean that consistency or that you're going to reach where you're going. But Dean has had so many outings where he's gone 6, 7 into the 8th inning and dominated lineups. And then he dominated that Houston lineup on Sunday to help the Orioles win that series. And now in back-to-back series, the Orioles beat 2 teams that have World Series aspirations in the Mariners and the Stros. So there is a lot to like. There is a lot to like. Now they're going to have to continue, though, to figure out down the stretch here who's going to be a part of this plan moving forward. We know that Sam Basallo, now that he's up here, and Dylan Beavers, they're up here. They're going to get a run at it. I think Sam Basallo 100% is going to be a guy and be one of the guys in baseball for years to come. And Dylan Beavers, I think he's going to get a fair crack to be an everyday guy for this team moving into 2026. And then you're going to look at to see what the pieces you have in place. And then you're going to go into the offseason and really, really identify what you need. In starting pitching, you're going to need the depth. But it looks like with Trevor Rogers, Dean Kramer, Kyle Bradish been slated to come back here. And that's why I think I jumped to these points about why the Orioles are not that far off. They're not. The record to me does not indicate what they can be moving forward. Now, we probably aren't having all these conversations again if the Orioles have won a playoff series in either 23 or 24. But they haven't. They haven't let alone won a playoff game. So that's why people are wondering, can this young core do it? Can their leadership take over and take them to the next step? But ultimately, can your young players grow and you finally use your system to your advantage? And that is to see those guys come up from the minors and turn out to be really good big league players that can help this team go to a place that they haven't been in 42 years now, which is the World Series. So Sam Basallo, get used to him. Dylan Beavers, get used to him, but get used to this brand of baseball moving forward. I'm serious. These guys are good, and they're going to be able to bring it. And I would not be surprised if this Baltimore Orioles team down the stretch not only gets back to 500, but even finishes over it, just because I think that guys are starting to figure out a little bit more about what they need to do. And once you get that confidence and that beliefs back, this team can be extremely dangerous. So don't sleep on the birds moving forward. But if this weekend was any indication, it's a reminder to have some faith that these guys and this team are going to try to bring back a world championship to Baltimore. Might not be this year. It's not going to be this year. But in future years, this team's going to have a legit chance.